You know, that kid, a young man, I think he only been in the Marine Corps for like 6 months.
Wow.
He's sitting there fucking bleeding out in Nasiriyah, you know, and we took over 30 casualties that night. My name is Aaron Rodriguez. I served in the Marine Corps from 2001 to 2005. I got out as a corporal.
What jobs did you sign up to do?
I was actually open contract.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, so yeah, needs of the Marine Corps ended up putting me as an MP. So,
okay.
And I didn't find that out until MCT. I'm from Mesa, Arizona. Grew up there. Went to high school out there. Pretty much one of the few natives, I'm told, of Arizona. Everything like that. So just there. Just played sports. Things like that. Wasn't, you know, didn't really have a close family.
Anything significant happened in your childhood that impacted your life in any which way?
Some of the I guess childhood or teenage violence that I experienced growing up that kind of showed me that I don't want to go down that path. You know, in and out of jail, things like that. You know, I saw that from my brother a lot. He was in and out of jail, arrested from anything from, you know, drinking underage to, man, he was actually got arrested for second-degree murder.
Oh shit.
You know, at one time. And so it just, yeah, didn't have very good role models to, you know, look up to growing up. I knew I wanted to be in the military, and I actually got medically disqualified by the Army first.
Oh, really?
Because I was going back and forth between the two, you know, see if I could get a signing bonus or, you know, money for college and things like that, which the Army was offering, the Marine Corps not so much at that time. Yeah, it was just money for college, just looking for direction, you know. I signed up in June 2001 and left out July 8th, 2001 for boot camp at Parris Island. And I was just, you know, just trying to find my place in the world, you know, and just looking for guidance and having that discipline and being a part of something to help me, you know, further myself and be a better version of myself going forward into adulthood.
So you were in boot camp during 9/11?
Yes.
What was that like?
So this was the first time in my adulthood or adult life that I purposely pissed myself, or willingly. So it was Parris Island. We were in, I think, Field Week. We were in Field Week, and I was doing push-ups in a canal with like 10 other recruits. And we're just sitting there, you know, the water, you know, face down, coming back up, breathing and everything. And there was this other recruit that needed to go to the bathroom. And I said, you know, sir, this recruit requests an emergency head call. And the DI's like, I don't hear no fucking sirens. So this kid's going, woo, woo, all the way to the head, right? And I was like, I don't want to go through that. I don't want to do that. So I just pissed myself right there in the canal. It's like, why not? I'm already soaking wet.
Right.
So I just said, you know what? I'm not making fire engine sounds to go to the bathroom. So there was that. But it was very odd because the drill instructors weren't where they normally were. And all of a sudden, it was like half the DIs were there. And then they'd switch, and then half more would come out. And they were going back and forth, and we didn't know what was going on. And the whole day went by, and it was like this really weird feeling like, why are they... it wasn't that they were being easier on us, it just wasn't as much. And that evening, the evening of September 11th, our drill instructor came out, and he was this short Southern guy. We called him Popeye because his forearms were just massive, and he could do pull-ups one-armed all day. Like, he was our god, you know. Like, that was our senior drill instructor, and he came out and he goes, you know, with a Southern accent, he goes, "Fuck me to tears, boys. We got sucker punched." That's what he said, and he started explaining everything that happened, and it was just unfolding because we thought they were fucking with us again. Because our heavy comes out and goes, "You guys are going to earn your college money now, and some of you are going to die."
Wow.
Like, straight up, like we're going to war, and we're like, yeah, we've heard this before, you know, trying to get us ready. And, you know, basically we thought it was another boot camp fuck game. You know, they're just trying to you know, mentally mess with us a little bit. And he started going through this list, and he goes, "How many of you guys are from New York?" And 5 guys raised their hand. And I said, "Well, how many of you from the Manhattan area?" And 3 of them raised their hand. I said, "How many of your parents work in the World Trade?" or family, and 3 of them raised their hands. You 3 come with me now.
Oh, wow.
And 2 of them didn't return. So I never saw those guys again.
Really?
Yeah, they were gone. I never saw them again. Like they packed up their foot lockers and were out of there. So I'm guessing they probably got dropped to a different platoon to go home and deal with matters on that. We had 2 other guys that jumped up that didn't live, like I think their parents lived outside of Manhattan but worked at the World Trade. And one kid raised his hand and he goes, my parents work at the World Trade. My parents work at the World Trade. And he goes, yeah, I just got off the phone with your mom. Keep her the fuck away from me on family day. That's what the guy said. He's like, I don't want to talk to her anymore. And apparently she spazzed out on him or something. And and then the second kid, so then they came back and they said the Pentagon got hit. And one of our recruits who had a drooping lower lip, so they called him recruit blowjob, the DIs did. Because he always looked like he was ready to take in something. But so he gets up and he goes, sir, this recruit's father works at the Pentagon. He goes, yeah, I just talked to him. And you're going to pay for not telling us your dad's a full bird colonel. Yeah, they ran his ass until he puked in the pit the next day. So there was that real lax September 11th day. And then after September 12th, we fucking picked it up. Like it was... Like the recruits knew, like we were in line at that point in time. Like there was very little bickering and arguing. We all knew our role, what we had to do. I mean, like on laundry days and rack inspection, we were already ready to go. I mean, when that DI would hit the light after that, we were already online, ready to go to morning chow. And he just looked over at us and goes, that's it. That's all he had to do from then on. I mean, it was just, we knew it was go time. Like it was like we were at war and this was that. And then, I think our class, because we graduated in October, they canceled graduations from September 11th until the first week of October. So my platoon, which is hotel company at Paris Island, 2nd Battalion, we were the first graduation to happen post 9/11. And they were only allowing like 1 parent on base. Like it was very minimal, like who could get on base for graduations. And I mean, it was a quick graduation. Walked around, little speech. Hand salute, done. That was it. Like it wasn't like a grand, you know, like the normal graduations. It was very, very small, and they got us in and out of there, and that was it. After boot camp, I went to schoolhouse, so MCT at Lejeune, and then went to the schoolhouse at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for military police, and then from there in January of '02, I got orders to MCAS Yuma, Arizona. My recruiter said go see the world, and I got fucking stationed in my home state.
So, and then you eventually did find yourself in Iraq during the invasion, right?
Yeah. So we about 10 months had passed. I think it was about September, October of 2002. We got word that about 10 MPs would be deploying. Our gunnery sergeant, sergeant corporal, and 7 PFCs and lances. Little platoon going. We were going to go deploy with what was called the AAOE, which is Advanced Arrival On Scene Element, and we were packing up to leave out December, January. So we had to do a bunch of field inspections of all of our gear, and started getting put on standby in December. And I mean, we'd have morning formations every morning, whether to tell us we're going or not. And then January 7th, we got put on lockdown. Basically, we weren't allowed to leave base. They said, we're leaving out tomorrow morning. So we got on buses to at Yuma, drove to March Air Force Base, and we flew out from there directly, and it was from other units from Pendleton and Miramar. Refueled in Frankfurt, Germany, and hit Kuwait City International Airport, I think by January 9th, we were there.
Wow.
And that evening, the combat engineers were already setting up the hardback tents to bring in all the troops, the Marines in from stateside, and have us, have tents set up. And so they were just doing 2x2, 2x4 framing, and I mean they were on it like that.
Wow. I
mean it was crazy how soon. I mean hit the ground running.
Now you have an interesting story about being in Kuwait.
Yeah.
Regarding the Air Force, man.
So there's a couple things here. So we arrived on the 9th, and by the 11th. We were kicked out of pretty much every thing that the Air Force ran. Okay, so where they put us at was like this big ass rock field in Al Jaber Air Base. And that's where we were building up the hardback tents. And then they had this huge berm. And on the other side of the berm was the Air Force Base, the Chow Hall, all the dorms and everything like that. Well, the male Marines had been venturing over to the female Air Force dorms and causing some issues with the Air Force males and at that point in time. So by the 11th, we were kicked out of all the female dorms. And by the 12th, we weren't allowed to use their pool anymore. And by the 13th, we weren't allowed to go over that side of the berm anymore or use the Chow Hall. So, I mean, it took us, we wore out our welcome in about 4 days.
Wow.
And so, but then Marines kept getting in trouble from going over the berm. And we're like, why are you guys going over there? Why are you going over there? And we found out later, because when after we got back from Iraq and everything like that, the MPs were doing customs. And we found some Air Force females that had about $15,000 in cash each. There was 2 of them.
Oh, shit.
And were trying to hide it to get it back. And come to find out after investigation and everything like that, they'd basically opened a brothel for the Marines. The Air Force females did. Wow. And they were just charging them cash. And they tried to get it back through on customs at the end of whatever, and they got caught.
Holy
They got busted for it.
shit. Did any of the Marines get in trouble?
I have no idea on that front. Like,
Wow.
Yeah. So like I don't know if the command knew or was getting wise to it. It was like, we need to separate this. But yeah, by day 4 or 5, we were completely separated from the Air Force. Like we weren't allowed over there at all.
Wow.
And they were not welcoming us, on that.
Yeah.
And so after about the 13th, 14th, we got to the armory and everything like that. And then the MPs had a separate mission. We had to work with the Air Force. So we had to work with the SFs, the security forces with that. Working with the Air Force on that, we started having some little friction coming up. I had one guy started complaining about stop, loss, stop move in February, that he wasn't going to get out of Kuwait until May. Now, their living conditions, I mean, I've seen college dorms worse than that. Like, these guys had their own racks, their own beds. We were sleeping on cots or the ground. They had, a twin bed, bunk bed. They had a issue TV and DVD and VCR player. Like, they're set. They're not crossing over the border, and this guy's fucking complaining. They have a full-on chow hall. These fuckers got steak and lobster.
Dude.
Before the war started, it's like a pre-victory meal or something like that. And it's like, that's what you guys get? I got a fucking MRE with some jalapeno cheese. Like, that's
chow hall.
Yeah.
There was no joke, man. I remember going up there and just holding my tray out, because usually I'm used to them just slopping whatever shit they're serving that morning.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what do you want? I'm like, what do you mean, what do I want?
I had a fucking sandwich.
I want whatever the fuck's for breakfast. And they're like, well, we got pancakes, we got omelets, we got, what do you want to make? I'm like, what the fuck?
Just give me some watered down scrambled eggs, man. Like,
it was wild, man.
Yeah. So as soon as the U.S. military presence in Kuwait started building up, we started getting reports of attacks. Or, guys driving by and shooting at American vehicles and things like that. So, our awareness had to be heightened, and we had to, figure out, enemy from friends and everything like that. So we have, like I said, we're traveling in buses to and from the airport to their camps and everything. And one time, we're coming on the freeway, and then we're the last bus. I'm in the last bus. We're a trail vehicle. And 4 of the buses just turn off onto the exit, and we still keep going straight. And the whole time I'm screaming at the guy, follow those buses. Finally, I grabbed the wheel and I had to pull it over, and I placed my rifle to the back of his head. And I told him, turn this fucking bus over right now. Obviously, he didn't understand me, but a barrel to the back of your head's pretty explanatory at that point. I pulled him over, made him stop the bus. I put him as what we call the Iraqi fighting stance. Right here, that's the Iraqi fighting stance. So I had him grab him by the back, put his head down to the steering wheel, and I got my rifle to the back of his head, telling him, where are you going, trying to get some type of answers, because he was not following the rest of the buses. And so at that point, I'm talking to my guy, Johnson, who's got a saw, who's at the rear of the bus. I'm asking him, situation report, we got any vehicles coming up, any suspected vehicles and everything? He's no. Says, and then I asked for the senior enlisted on the bus, and I started handing out mags. Tell your NCOs condition 1, You port side, you starboard. Everybody get your heads down. Cover the windows up, everything. And then I made that driver put it in reverse, back all the way up to that exit, and get on that exit and go.
Did you ever find out where he was going?
No. I'm glad we didn't.
That's wild.
I mean, I'm glad we didn't find out where we were going. I mean, that fucking ambush set up or something, man. Like,
yeah.
Just real stupid, man. Like, why aren't you following that? Like, where are you going?
That's fucking wild.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I just started handing out fucking mags, man. I had 7 fully loaded mags. Psh, fuck that. Like,
wow.
We need to arm up, man, and go. But I mean, like, this is the buildup. This is February. So our mission was going to be to support the Cobra helicopters while they supported the infantry. So we were going to make up these little makeshift fobs in the middle of the desert. Cobras come, land, refuel, rearm, go back out. And so we started training for that. And the 2 ways that we trained for was a mobile FARP, which would be in a CH-46, carrying a fuel bladder. They would drop the fuel bladder, land the thing. We'd come out 360, and then they set up a dirty FARP right there to refuel. So that's what we were training for. We were told that we were just going to be in the rear, that we were going to, the helicopters come land, infantry's a ways away, and that they would push, we would basically leapfrog other FARPs. So this FARP would go set up, support the infantry and the helicopters, and then we'd leapfrog in front of them. And then I think on the 22nd, we got orders that it's time to pack up. We're going to start moving out. We had a couple gas, things happen. I remember some major came up because they were on the convoy going into Iraq, and we were on the outside of the border, and we called gas, and everybody's ditches. They put their mask on, everything up, and some officer comes up and is like, well, how come it wasn't called, the missile attack wasn't called first? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, well, if it's gas, there has to be a delivery mechanism. So I'm like, I'm a Lance Corporal. The fuck do I know? Somebody says gas, I put the mask on. I don't know how it got here. Like, what do you want from me, man? Like all of a sudden, I know exactly, where it came from. It came over the net. That's where it came from. And so just little shit like that, those things coming off 2-3 times a day for those 3-4 days. You're sleeping in your mop gear. You know how mop gear is, man. Yeah. That stuff is suffocating. Like, you can't breathe. It's just a sweat. And so we're sitting in that, and then 23rd rolls around. We pack up and we start moving out. I think we staged on the border the night of the 23rd, and the 24th we crossed over. Set up in the desert somewhere south of Nasiriyah, and then that sandstorm hit. And we couldn't move for probably about 36 hours the night of the 24th, end of the day. And we just basically, we did a 360 with all of our, about 40 vehicles. We did a 360 and then put our command post in the center of that, and everybody's weapons were outboard, and we sat like that for probably about 24 hours, just waiting for it to clear up. Finally, the next morning it cleared up, and as we started getting into our convoy order to get out of there, we start driving up and we start seeing just a bunch of Humvees shot to shit and covered in blood. A couple, 5 tons just. And we didn't recognize we didn't recognize the vehicles because the symbols on them weren't Marine units, so they were Army. And so we stage up the morning of the 26th. We start coming up. When we go get in our convoy line, then we have our security briefing. And we have our intel officer come out and tell us we're going to be going through a city. And in this city, there was some heavy fighting a few days ago, but now there's no known resistance. Okay. Pretty simple, right? They've been telling us the whole time that we're probably not going to see combat, and that we're in the rear with the gear or whatever, and that we're not going to be, probably not going to, see very much. And that we're going to be, in a support element. So they said, we're going through the city. It's going to be a couple bridges, and then it's a straight shot to the airbase. I was like, okay, it sounded simple enough. Just a movement, convoy movement. So we get to the southern part of the city, and we come up on this bridge, and there are refugees and civilians covering this entire bridge, and they're marching south, and they got them stopped. and they asked one of the security vehicles, I guess basically to provide cover, which was my vehicle, to escort half through at a time. So we took half those civilians, and because we didn't want them coming into our lines, you know, with all of our vehicles and zigzagging and everything, because they'll steal shit from you. They'll reach in your Humvees and grab it and run off. I'll get into that later. But it's just these kids, they'll do it. But these people are on foot. You know, they don't have any water, nothing. So we're trying to give them water and keep them to the side and coming through. Well, this is right at dusk. So the sun's starting to fall. And we get these people. It's probably about 100 people. And I'm just basically waiting to see which one of them's got a gun or something in the crowd or whatnot. So we get to the end of the convoy where we're at, and they just keep walking. Apparently they were refugees from Baghdad. They'd walked over, you know, hundreds of miles or whatever, getting out of there. So we turn around, we come back up, and the road curves, and then it curves to the left, and it goes up to the southern bridge. And again, our intel briefing was no known resistance. That the city had been cleared, has been deemed secure, and everything like that. So as we come up, I come to the southern point of the bridge, and we're waiting there, and our officer, and I didn't overhear this conversation, but somebody had told me that did. When we got up to that southern bridge that second time coming through, one of the infantry officers come up and said, "Who the fuck are you guys, and why are you here?" I said, "Well, we're supposed to punch through the city and go set up a FARP over here," which was, I believe it was, all the FARPs were codenamed by baseball stadiums. So Three Rivers was to the west. We had to get to Fenway, which was Kalatsakar Air Base, to repair that. So we're like, oh, we got to go to here. And the guy goes, "Let me explain something to you. You guys get north of us and anything happens, we're not coming for you. Our job is to secure this bridge and hold this bridge. We're the nearest infantry unit to you." And they said, "Well, that's fine. Our orders are pushed through." And it was an officer from 2-8 that he nicknamed us the Rolling Retards. Yeah, because we were a supply unit going through. And at this time, I didn't know what the city was called, but it was the city of Nasiriyah. And so this conversation takes place, and it's like, well, we got our orders to push through. So we get back in our vehicles, and there's still about 100 civilians on the bridge. And we start to push forward, and fire opens from across the river. The enemy starts opening up on the crowd. And then the mortars come. And then there's RPGs. And we get caught in a crossfire between 2-8 and 110. 110's dropping artillery on us, and 2-8's freaking firing on us. And the enemy's coming from the front. So I think what I found is a target. I sight in, pull the trigger, bolt goes forward, round falls out the bottom on a 240. Fuck, clear it out, boom, boom, boom. Same thing, bolt forward, boom, fuck it, grab my M16. And I just started firing off my M16 into where I thought the enemy's positions were. And we had mortars cut and drop down and everything. And there was a PFC that got hit. And he was screaming, and I could hear him screaming. He had gotten shot in the ass, or so we thought. And our OIC was basically saying, "Hey, you need to be quiet, okay? You've been shot, you're shot in the ass, it's, you know, you're good." Kid started saying, "I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my legs." And he started saying, "My mom's gonna be pissed." Right? 18-year-old kid, right? Thought he got shot in the ass, but the ass wound or whatever was the exit wound. It actually hit him above the left hip, ricocheted off his spine, and exited out his right cheek. That's why he couldn't feel his legs. You know, that kid, a young man, I think he only been in the Marine Corps for like 6 months.
Wow.
He's sitting there fucking bleeding out in Nasiriyah, you know. And we took over 30 casualties that night, whether it was from friendly fire or from the enemy. Lance Corporal Taub got hit in the face with some shrapnel. Staff Sergeant Karchner, he was a critical. He got hit in the chest. And then, yeah, so that was 2 guys immediately. I mean, I believe that they said if battalion medical wasn't set up right across the street, like basically like in the field right over, that those guys may not may not have made it.
Wow.
So we're sitting there, and pop-up flares start coming. You ever seen one of those? Mm-hmm. Some scary shit. Like, you start seeing, like, what the fuck? So this pop-up flares are coming. We exit all of our vehicles, and we basically start digging in the night. There's like this burn that goes down and goes into this field. This field is like a trash field. It's like where they dump all their trash. And it was like, that's where we lived. Like, it just smelled like a rotten trash, you know. That's it. Like, that's where we were at for 2 days. And we had to dig in with the grunts then, with 2-8. That night, we were in fighting holes. And the next morning, one of our 50 cals is missing. What the fuck happened to our 50 cal? And he goes, well, and one of the lance corporals, it was like, oh, I saw some guys take it off. I thought it was the MPs. Fucking grunt stole our 50 cal.
Oh, shit.
So they acquired our 50 cal. I don't think we ever got it back. Because they acquired it. They fucking went to set it up in their fighting hole.
Gear adrift is a gear gift, man.
Yeah, they so we were down a 50 cal. I think we ended up getting it back in the end, but it was just fucking hilarious that the next morning we wake up and our 50 cal's gone from one of the Humvees. It wasn't the horror until it was the sun fully rose that we saw what was on the bridge, and it was just nothing but civilian dead bodies. And I mean, it was from men, women, children, all the way down, scattered about. And the rough thing is we couldn't move their bodies. We couldn't get out to move their bodies, so we had to go over them.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So we couldn't move couldn't get out to move their bodies, and it was just, I mean, 7 tons, tanks, everything, just going over them. Like, that was that.
So you guys continue pushing forward?
We had to pull back. This was the morning of the 27th. Apparently there was still some resistance in Nasiriyah. So we pulled back, I don't know, a few miles from the southern bridge, and then they just lit that town up that night of the 27th. Fucking artillery. It probably was a couple cruise missiles or Tomahawks in there somewhere, but they lit that town up. And we just sat back and watched the fireworks go off. And then morning of the 28th, it had been finally established that we need to get to Kuwait Air Base because the runway was out. And that was going to be our first major FOB, was Kuwait Air Base. It was just south of Al Qut, and it was directly east of Baghdad. So our mission was the 26th. We got to get north, right? Because a lot of the infantry units, because we were the first supply unit, although the 28th, when we started to go through, we were the first supply unit to go through Nasiriyah. So the RCTs that were up north in Al Qut and Kuwait, they were cut off. They didn't have supplies. So they were, I think, down to like 1 MRE a day and very little water. So they had to reestablish the supply lines to get them resupplied because they're going to Baghdad soon. And so that was our mission on the morning of the 28th, is that we had to get there. Now, it seemed like everybody was doing a movement on the 28th because they ended up putting us, on the 26th, it was just FARP Team Charlie that was trying to go through. It was like 40 vehicles from MWS 371. Then on the 28th, they had 4 units. 2nd CSSB, 371, Triple R, which was Rapid Runway Repair, and then they had elements of 2-8 there, and then some of the LAVs and Amtraks to escort us through there. So we had triple what we had, plus air cover. We had Cobras. So we had so much more than what we did on the 26th to push through. So the 28th, we crossed the bridge, and it's morning time. It's like 6, 7 a.m. And we're getting, it's about a convoy of about 250 vehicles. So this thing stretches for 4 or 5 miles. And 371 is the middle back half. So 371 and Triple R are the middle back half. All right, and then the front half is CSSB, Combat Service Support Battalions, and I think some other FSSG stuff for 2nd MEB. and things like that. And so we punch out, we start going, boom, 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 boom. We get through Nasiriyah, just north on SR7, and the front of the convoy ends up getting hit with RPGs. I don't think any vehicles were damaged or anything like that. So they call in the Cobras, and 2 divisions of Cobras, so eight Cobra helicopters total. One was covering the front, one was covering the rear. So they go in and they take care of this RPG team, blow it up, everything like that. At that point, when I heard on the radio, they told us we were turning around. So they basically said, you guys got hit, we're turning around. So we're in a hairpin turn. Half the convoy's on the southbound and half the convoy's in the northbound. So we're trying to turn around in a hairpin, 250 vehicles.
Oh, shit.
Okay? After we had just gotten ambushed. So during this whole thing, they come to the conclusion that it's going to take us a few more hours to turn it all around and go like that. So I don't know who it was, which officer. They said, well, we can either push through now and get to our objective, or we can go back through Nasiriyah at night. They decided to push north. So we turned around again. Okay? So we decided to turn around again, and this is about 3 or 4 p.m., I'm guessing. It's late afternoon. So we turn around again, and then the Cobra helicopters say, we're out of fuel, guys. We got to go back to refuel. And the officer's like, no, you can't leave us. You need to be here watching us. And so they said, well, you know, they got some fuel trucks down there. Helicopters land. We refuel, rearm them, get them up going. Okay, we start pushing. All right, we test fire our weapons. You know, I finally get mine to work. It finally works, right? That's the first time I ever fired a 240. Isn't that crazy? Never fired a 240 before. So I fired 240 off. Everyone else is firing their stuff off, and we're hearing little brr, brr, brr everywhere. Okay, finally sun sets. It's pitch black, dark, and we're getting going. And no fire, no ambush. As soon as half the convoy gets through and the first fuel truck shows up, they hit us. And it's about 4 to 5 Iraqi positions, machine gun positions, plus small arms fired, and they're dug in. And this is coming from a building about 150 to 200 meters off the side of the road. And they're dug in at about 100 meters in the field in front of the building. So I engage right away. I see it. I'm coming from an angle. I see the LAVs firing. I sight in, engage, start sending rounds into the building. And we're chucking along. It's very, you know, we're hitting vehicles in front of us because we're just, you know, there's no depth perception on the MVGs, and you're constantly, you know, so I'm getting jerked around in the turret, firing and everything like that. And then we come up and we paused. We stopped directly in the middle of it. And we're just trading rounds, firing back and forth. And come to find out, one of our Humvees had ran out of gas. The staff NCO forgot to fuel it up that morning. So they're basically unloading their Humvee into another vehicle and getting out of there. And while this is happening, we're taking more and more fire. And so we're engaging, and then it sporadically stops, and then boom, it just picks up again all at once. And for some reason, I looked up and I saw 2 flashing red lights, and it was the Cobra helicopters, and they're like 50 feet directly above me. And I got shit falling down on me from there, because they're firing. I got stuff coming down on me, and I just held the trigger and just started sweeping. And we get through that. Everything stops. I mean, that 3rd-story building was gone, and they leveled it. And during this confusion and chaos, the Marine in the vehicle, or 2 vehicles behind me, crashed his vehicle. And some of the Marines inside were shot up. And so they got the people loaded up that were wounded and things like that, and then we moved on. And didn't think anything more of it. We got to, I think it was An Najif, and we got another firefight up there, which was just south of Kalatsakar Air Base. And then we got to Kalatsakar Air Base, or not Kalatsakar, I mean, we're south of there in this field. And we park, and I'm going over everything that just happened, making sure my weapon's up, good to go, making sure, there's no holes, everything's working and functioning like it should. And so my staff sergeant comes up and goes, "We got a formation." I said, "What the fuck we got a formation for?" "There's a Marine missing." I said, "What? Let's go get him." "What do you mean there's a Marine? There's nothing to talk about. There's a Marine missing." He go, "Get that weapon up." Like, "All right, staff sergeant." So I started doing that and, making sure the weapon's, the fucking thing is still hot, dude. And he comes over again after the formation, and I said, "What are we doing?" He says, "Marine missing, let's go get him." I said, "Oh, they're sending F-18s to go look for him." I don't think, what the fuck's an F-18 gonna do? And it was like they weren't sending the F-18s to go look for him, they were sending F-18s to go blow up his truck. And so we started hearing like what is going on? Why aren't we, on the move to go get this guy? And our commanding officer, and I believe from who it was Staff Sergeant Barilla, that they got into an argument out in the field about going to go get him. And so this big-ass argument's happening out in the middle of the field, and our commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Craven, says, "No, we're not going back for him."
Wow.
I said, "What the fuck are you talking about? We're not going back for him." He said, he cited further loss of life and gear. We had 8 fucking LAVs, 2 divisions of Cobras, and about 200 Marines ready to go back and get him.
Holy
and
shit.
he fucking told us to stand down. Fucking told us not to go back for him and stand down. And you could just tell all the leaders had fucking no clue what they were doing at this point. All the officers, except for one, our Lieutenant Orta was pretty fucking squared away. But everyone outranked him. So he was just like, a Lance. I got to take all my orders from somebody else. And they told us not to go get him. Just fucking stand down. And I'm pretty sure that there was words said from some of the staff NCOs, everything. And then they ordered the Cobra helicopters to go back, I guess, and use some type of thermal to look for him. They couldn't find anything. And it's like, well, what are the Cobra helicopters going to do? This is a mission that needs boots on the ground towards it. Like, you're not going to do anything from the air. And they kept just trying to put the situation off, trying to make it somebody else's problem. Because then I heard the F-18s were going to go look for him. Then I heard Recon was going to go get him.
So what ended up happening? Who did they ever find out what happened to who it was? At this point, do you know who's missing? No. Okay.
More, like at that point, no. Yes, I did find out. His name was Sergeant Fernando Padilla-Ramirez.
But at that point,
I didn't know.
Well, not you specifically, but did people know who they were looking for?
They knew who it was. They knew who it was.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't, but they did. They knew who exactly was missing and what gear was missing.
Right.
And because he was driving a 7-ton that was fully loaded, and something happened where they swerved and went off the road, and mass confusion and chaos of war, but not having accountability.
Yeah.
I mean, we do that all the time. All present and or accounted for. All formations like that. That's one of the biggest fucking sticklers. Now you're going to tell me because you're tired or you don't want to lose any more gear or life that no man left behind doesn't fucking apply to this scenario? What is no man left behind only for special forces or infantry? Like, you know what I mean? Like, who does no man left behind apply to? Doesn't apply to the air wing?
That's wild.
Like the air wing, like.
So when it ends up happening, you guys go get them or what's?
No, told to stand down. Supposedly some people did go drive back to get eyes on it, and they just said they saw a burning vehicle. But other than that, there was no attempt made that evening or in the subsequent days to go get him. Our early reports heard that he was taken alive that night. And then through the rumor mill and things like that, they said that he was tied up to a vehicle and drugged through the town and then put up on a cross for the display.
No shit.
Yeah.
How did you guys find that out? Or how was that confirmed?
Fucking rumors, man. We had more shit. See, and that was the thing. Like, once we got to our main pause in Kalatsakar and they just put us out in fighting holes, they didn't share any information with us at all. Everything that we got was from other units. We had officers from other units, expressing their frustration with the situation. Like, my buddy Jimmy was telling me one time that some officer came up to him and started fucking telling him, your CO's a piece of shit. He left that Marine behind. Like, things like that. So it's like, it was odd that we didn't get information from our own unit. We were getting it from other units, from other people that had heard it. Mm-hmm. So we don't know what's going on, whether they recovered him or not or whatnot. But talking to some other people and everything, there was an attempt made on April 1st to go get him. And that was the same thing that I think it coordinated with all military rescues. So Jessica Lynch was there, things like that. And for some reason, they weren't able to retrieve him that day. I don't know what happened, but they didn't get him that day. And then so was it 4 days later on April 5th, Fox 2-2 went and got him.
How did you guys find out that he had been drugged through the city and hung up on a cross?
There was they had sent out a drone. So there was a drone that was set out that I think it was that morning, and they went and they saw his vehicle and they went in to where it was at, and they like spotted what they believed was him being hung from a telephone pole with a freaking with like a guillotine or whatever they strap across his back.
Fuck.
Yeah,
man.
in his full mop gear. Like they didn't
in his full mop.
Like he was still dressed. And so I think after the first, something happened where the civilians or the citizens of that town were able to cut him down. And they went and they buried him out in a field, which was a trash dump. And that's where Fox 2-2 recovered him. Was in a field in a trash dump on April 5th. And they picked him up, they got him, and then he got identified. And then next of kin was notified later on, I think on the 10th. But it was just all rumor, Bill and Mace, man. It was.
Did that? You said it was a lieutenant colonel that made a decision not to go in.
Yeah.
Did he?
So the commanding officer of MWSS 371, which was the senior officer out there, made the call to not go back, and it was Lieutenant Colonel Cravens.
Did he get in trouble?
No, he got promoted and was given a Silver Star.
Wow, man.
And yeah, I don't know what else. Like, there was no accountability. There was no ever. It was like, oh, you don't talk about this anymore. It's kind of like you talk about it, you're gonna get in trouble or something. Things along those lines, because you're not gonna sit there and. I mean, basically, it boils down to you're calling your CO a coward. Running in the face of the enemy. So what do you do?
It's just crazy to me that how is that even a decision to be made? Like, one of our Marines is caught. It's the only decision is to go in and recover him.
Right.
That's fucking crazy. And then now all the Marines involved in that incident.
We carry this with us. It's bullshit, man. Like what? I just don't understand how as an officer you would you would go, okay, no man left behind. There's nothing more to discuss. Mm-hmm. It happens. We go take care of it. But they just. It seemed like they watched the commanding officers wash his hands clean of it and just moved on. And I could tell you this, it was a new CO too. We just got him, I think, in that December or November. So he'd only been with the unit for 2 or 3 months. Because I can tell you this, Lieutenant Colonel Dana would have never let that shit happen. And he just retired as a lieutenant general. It was leadership. I mean, it boils down to it was just leadership. And there was no reason why we couldn't go back. We outgunned them.
Man, you guys are going through all this, and you're a fucking supply company. You're That's wild, right? It's
Yeah.
yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, yes, we were the supply company, and then after, one of the crazy things was too is that like after that night it had happened, the next morning, people are trying to ask, trying to find out what the hell happened. Some people had heard about it, some people hadn't, and then Colonel Dowdy sent a motorcycle messenger to our OIC, Lieutenant Ortle. And Lieutenant Ortle went and briefed him on everything that would happen. The dude was like in disbelief. And so that's when Dowdy called Mattis and was like, hey, we need to clear out these supply lines, these routes. And I guess there was already some friction between Dowdy and Mattis anyways. They were already having some issues, and Mattis relieved his ass. So it's like the 06 that was trying to help the supply units gets relieved of duty. And it just a lot of things just didn't make sense. Like, honestly, looking at it from an outside, looking in, I'm like, this is the Marine Corps? Mm-hmm. Like, what fucking universe or whatever does the Marine Corps leave a man behind? And then not even discuss it or talk about it.
Wow, man. After, having gone through all that, talk to me about what it was like for you transitioning back into the civilian world.
We got back to, just to summarize it, it was such a shit deployment with a shit unit. One of our officers tried to kill one of our other officers because he was sleeping with his wife.
Oh my
that's as soon as we get back to Kuwait in May, we're doing that. And it was like by that time in that unit, we were pretty much all sick of each other because we were all reminders. Like, not that we hated each other, but it was just that we were a reminder of what happened. Mm. And then everybody else who wasn't there was always talking about it. Got out in July of 2005 and thought I wanted to be a cop and things like that. And was like, nah, I think I did enough in the military police. So then I started coaching football and working nights because all my firefights took place at night. So at night I'm a little bit more on guard. Mm. So it's a little bit more difficult for me to sleep at night. So yeah, I would work night jobs like security, things like that. And then I would coach football in the afternoons. So I go from football and everything like that. I really wasn't sleeping very much. I was very on guard at night. You'd hear a car pass by or a siren or a honk or something, and I'm, ready to go. I'm up. And so it was, honestly, I was taking all kinds of sleeping pills, Tylenol PM, Advil PM, everything over the counter you could possibly think of, just to get, 3-4 hours of sleep a night and just to relax myself enough. And then the thing that sparked it the most was Generation Kill. And I didn't watch it. I waited, it came out on DVD and I bought it and I watched it. And then, episode 4, they come out and they talk about the recovery and the capture of, or the capture and recovery of Sergeant Padilla. That's when it started to hit that it wasn't a small deal. It was a pretty big fucking deal. And that it was the tip, basically we were on the front line, the tip of the spear on that as a supply company. We're the first fucking supply company to hold a front line of a U.S. major war ever. So, as I got out and just looking back at things and realizing how it affected me. Like, even though I tried to put it away or ignore it or whatever, it was, living with the things that you go through and just the disappointment and the no man left behind and knowing that he was left there. Reports said that he was alive, and I started looking at that when he was captured, and I started looking at that going, it started messing with my head a little bit. Like, what's the Marine Corps if it's, not going to honor its creed?
Right.
Or who are you as any faction that doesn't do what you're going to say and honor it? And so I try to distance myself from the Marine Corps and my service. I stopped talking about it. I stopped talking about it that I was in. I put all my shit in a box, and
wow.
People are surprised that, when I tell them I was in the military. Oh, what branch?
Really?
Yeah, they don't know. They do not know, and I just it just was just, you don't do that. It's just so dishonorable leaving a man behind like that, and having to live with it. And granted, I was just a lance corporal. The one thing I could have done is fucking hijacked a Humvee and, you know, went after it. But, you know, that's the thing that plays in my head over and over and over. Could have done more, could have done more, could have done more.
How accurate was Generation Kill for that incident?
It's pretty accurate from the rumor mill side of things. It just confirmed everything that I'd already heard. The only thing that I really didn't know was with that CIA guy coming in and saying that we're trying to catch this guy and that the Padilla rescue can go, you know, is off to the side. That's a secondary mission. And I'm just like, so we want to kill this general and that's more important than rescuing a Marine? So it just showed me that we were all expendable. You know, and that just because something's said doesn't mean it's gonna, you know, happen. It's like, what if that had happened to me? If I had gotten captured, I'd be dead. I mean, like, there was no one coming to get me.
Right.
And the whole time I'm thinking someone's gonna come get me.
So did you end up ever going and getting help, like through the VA or anywhere?
I tried through to the VA. I scheduled an appointment, and then they called me 2 years later. And this was in 2012.
2 years later?
Yeah, they called me. I scheduled an appointment in 2010, and then 2 years later they called me, and I just went off on them. And they were sitting there telling me that, oh, well, we're here now, and we're here to help you now, and I went off on them. And then I just continued with life the way that I lived it, you know, isolating, not really going out a lot, and just sticking to myself, sticking to what I know. I mean, you leave a man behind like that, and your CO tells you not to come get him. That creates some fucking trust issues, man, in your life.
I bet.
Because people tell you they're there for you, and you know, things like that, and you're just like, well, are you? Fucking when I saw Dakota Meyer on Jocko Willing's podcast talking about his command telling him not to go get those Marines, and that Navy doc, that Navy corpsman. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Don't go get him. Then he, you know, defies orders and goes and get him. You know, so in 2003, the same shit, you know, happens, and then the same shit's happening in 2009. It's like, when the fuck are we gonna learn that we go get our guys, regardless of what it may result in?
Is there anything that you do to try to mitigate that all the emotions that arise from?
Yeah, honestly, you gotta have a good time, man. You just gotta go out and find shit to do. And I mean, obviously it's always gonna be there, but it doesn't need to be at the forefront.
Right.
You know, it doesn't need to be on my mind 24/7. You know, I can go out and function and do things and have a good life. You know, took me a while to get there though.
Yeah.
You know, survivor guilt and just not thinking that I deserved it. Like, you know, he didn't get to enjoy his life. Why should I get to enjoy mine? You know, and a lot of guys took that literally. Like, it just, I don't know what to say about it, man, because it's, number one, it's so fucking off the wall. Like, you don't hear about this stuff.
No.
And I'm surprised we still haven't heard about it. You know, it's just that these are the things that happen.
You know, so that's a wild story, man. It's crazy to have to deal with that. And I couldn't imagine, you know, being in that unit at that specific time and having the because like you said, you know, you're a Lance Corporal.
Been in the Marine Corps 18 months.
And you can't do shit about it. You got to follow fucking orders, you know? That's the most frustrating fucking thing ever, man. Wow.
Yeah, and following those orders is just, it's definitely hurt a lot of people in that unit. And, you know, I would like to see us get back together and try to create some sort of a support system for our unit, but it just doesn't seem like that's going to happen anytime soon. I would like it to, but yeah, like I said, a lot of us are reminders of the shit show that was.
Well, we're getting ready to cut the tape, brother.
Okay.
Any last words?
For Marines that are on active duty right now, don't let bitterness and shit affect how you lead. And I think that's one of the biggest things moving forward is don't be bitter and let it affect the way that you lead your troops. Because they need you more. And that's what this generation is. This generation of Marines is preparing the next generation for a war. And that's what, you know, it's got to go. And you got to get that knowledge from somewhere. And so I just hope that, you know, moving forward, the Marines can help each other more instead of fucking talking down or you know, pick each other up.
Right.
You know, hold each other accountable, but there's a way of doing that. So, yeah, just move forward with it, man.
Thanks for being here, Aaron.
All right, appreciate it.
Thanks for sharing, brother. Appreciate it. Big contribution to Urban Valor. So very grateful. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Push it to the limit, I can't go no more. Red light, no way, I'm coming back home. Long dirt road, all on my own. I'ma be the greatest, write my name in the stone. Write my name in the stone. Yeah, I'm coming